Hello, Garland Nixon here. And apparently, the FBI has truly been up to some miscreant behavior regarding the Hunter Biden laptop controversy. Let's talk. Hello, Garland Nixon here, and there's more information coming out about the Hunter laptop controversy that is, again, pointing back to the FBI being involved in illicit, immoral, and one would argue illegal activity. Let's start here. This is important. Let's look. FBI confirms had Hunter laptop since December, fails to say why they didn't mention that before the impeachment. So what we know is, this is from the Federalist Papers, if I can ever get to here. The FBI refused to say whether or not there are any active investigations concerning the content that the laptop's hard drive contains, but did reveal that they've had the laptop since as early as December 2019. Now, that's interesting for another number of reasons. Let's start why. We'll start why that's important, but this is not the big one. Okay, this is not the big one, but we'll start here. And that is that the FBI. Let me give myself a little more headroom here, because it's looking kind of weird. There we go. And that is because during the Trump impeachment, and this isn't the big thing I'm going to, it's one of them, but during the Trump impeachment, if you remember what happened was Donald Trump had contacted the president, the ostensible president, I would call the puppet of Ukraine, Vladimir Zelensky, and said that he felt that the Bidens should be investigated for illicit activity. Okay. And it was claimed that he was somehow attempting to blackmail them, that he was out of line, et cetera, et cetera. But what is important is that the FBI kept it quiet, that they knew that there was probable cause and at minimum reasonable suspicion. Remember, reasonable suspicion is for my law enforcement, probable cause is, the belief, some evidence that a belief that a crime has been committed by a particular person. Reasonable suspicion is considered a little more than a hunch. So they had a laptop, and in that laptop, there was numbers of things that showed that Hunter Biden was involved in a number of questionable business dealings in Ukraine, and there were inferences that his father may have been involved. So there was, I would say, not just reasonable suspicion, but probable cause to believe that Joe Biden was involved in some illicit activity in Ukraine, that there certainly was probable cause to begin an investigation. If you look at the dubious evidence that the FBI used to begin an investigation against Donald Trump, the infamous Crossfire Hurricane investigation, they basically made up things that weren't evidence and started an investigation. And even their reasoning for starting an investigation in many instances contradicted other things that they said. So when it came to Trump, they came up with all kinds of reasons and excuses to start an investigation. And in many instances, the investigation hit a dead end and it stood to be closed. And people at the top of the investigation would step in and say, hey, Don't close that investigation. Keep it going, even when there was no evidence, and even when people at the lowest levels were demonstrating we don't have any reason to keep going with this investigation. They would hit a stop sign, they would run it. They would hit another stop sign, they would run it. So really, the Trump investigation was a series of stop signs that they kept running, and they would tear a stop sign down and put up a go sign when they had an option. They lied. People have been prosecuted on and on. So we see that the FBI, when it came to Donald Trump, literally violated the law and every ethical consideration that you could think of to start an investigation and continue an investigation. But when Donald Trump was being impeached for implying that the Bidens may have been, and asking for an investigation and implying that the Bidens may have been involved in illicit activity in Ukraine, the evidence that the FBI had significant evidence that his accusation was well-founded. They withheld that investigation during a presidential impeachment. That's the first half. Let's now go to the second half with the new investigation that we have that's of significant consequence. The new revelations, shall we say. I don't know if I said investigations, the new revelations that we've had. Let's take a peep here. FBI warned Twitter during weekly meetings of Hunter Biden hack and leak operation before censoring the post. Now, let's start here. The FBI had weekly meetings? Think about this. The FBI was having weekly meetings with Twitter and Facebook leading up to the elections. So here's my argument. Many of us have complained that the social media companies were little more than an end around for the U.S. government. So the U.S. government could not censor First Amendment protected speech and information. The U.S. government couldn't censor it. It would be obvious what they were doing and illegal. So they used a proxy. They used the social media companies. They used Google, etc. They used big tech companies to do their censoring. Therefore, they could plausibly argue that the government was not censoring free speech. Therefore, people who were arguing that their free speech was being censored were not afforded the protections of the First Amendment. Okay, so let's continue. So the FBI now, we find out, is meeting weekly with the social media, right? The FBI warned Twitter during weekly meetings before the 2020 election to expect hack and leak operations by state actors involving Hunter Biden, and likely in October. So the FBI had the laptop. They had gone themselves and picked it up from the person who had it in Delaware. My understanding is that Hunter Biden, let's talk about that. My understanding is that Hunter Biden had left the laptop in a computer store in Delaware. He had forgotten it was there, that the owner of the computer store then, of course, took ownership of it. Apparently, he tried to contact Biden. That's my understanding of it. He took ownership of the computer after a reasonable amount of time when Biden didn't get it. And at some point, he contacted the FBI, and they came and got either the laptop or a copy of the laptop, whatever, but copies of the hard drive. The guy had a right. He owned them. He owned them. If somebody leaves something, if you repair things and somebody leaves if you repair something and somebody leaves the whatever it was that you were fixing at your shop, in almost all states that I know of, you have a right at some point in time to assume ownership. For instance, in the state of Maryland, that's where I was in law enforcement. If you have a car or, let's say, a boat, and you take it somewhere and you leave it at the shop for the owner of the shop to fix it, and you never come back, after a certain amount of time, the owner can apply for what's called a mechanic's lien. In other words, they can apply because you have not paid the bill or picked it up, they can use that then legally to assume ownership, to get a title for that boat, car, whatever. And oftentimes there'll be requirements, like they'll have to make reasonable attempts to contact you. Sometimes they'll even have to, in some states, they'll even have to advertise in a local paper to try to get it to you. But at some point in time, the owner of that shop can take ownership of something that you leave there. That's pretty well-established law. Therefore, this guy owned that laptop. It was his. He was able to give it to the FBI, and he was able to keep a copy of everything on it because he had ownership of it. Perfectly legal. December 2019, he apparently, as I understand, as best I understand it, he contacted the FBI. They came and got the laptop. So the FBI, A, had the laptop, and B, knew the origin of the laptop. They knew it wasn't hacked. They knew they had the laptop. However, here's what's interesting. The FBI is in possession of the laptop, but they also know that other people may have copies. This guy may have copies. He didn't tell us whether he advised I don't know. Well, he may have. I don't recall seeing whether or not he told the FBI he kept a copy or not. I don't know that. I don't know if he told the FBI that he gave other people a copy or not, but he gave it to the FBI. The FBI knew there was a possibility that there was a copy of that hard drive out there. Now, what do we see now? This is critical. The FBI has been telling the social media companies there may be as they put it, hack and leak operations by state actors involving Hunter Biden, likely in October. Right now, this is according to Twitter's former head of site integrity. So keep in mind what's going on. Think about this. The FBI has Hunter Biden's laptop. The FBI knows that it is the original laptop. It's Hunter Biden's laptop. They've got possession of it. They picked it up. They know how it got there. They've interviewed the guy. They know that this is legit. So they got this laptop. They know it's legit. They then go to the social media companies. They don't tell them that they have the laptop. They don't tell anybody that they have the laptop. They hide the laptop. They then go to social media companies and say, hey, look, foreign actors may do a hack and leak on Hunter Biden in October. A hack and leak. Then when the information hits, we get a Politico or The Hill, I don't remember it was, article that says 51 former intelligence officials, FBI, CIA, you name it, come out and say the Hunter Biden laptop story has all the earmarks of a Russian disinformation program. So are we to believe that at that time, those former intelligence officials had no contact with the FBI? The FBI didn't tell them, no, we've already got it, number one. Number two, that story comes out and the FBI doesn't say, we know it's not foreign disinformation or Russian disinformation because we've got it. And we went and picked it up and we interviewed the owner of it. Are we to believe that some of that didn't happen? I would argue this. The FBI at that time has a duty to say, look, those guys are wrong. It's not foreign disinformation. But they did the opposite. Let's continue looking at this story and see where it goes. The warnings were so specific that Twitter immediately censored the post scoop about Hunter Biden's laptop, citing its hacked materials policy, a move described on Saturday as election interference by Twitter's new owner, Elon Musk. So the FBI has the laptop. They know it's good. But prior to it coming out, they go to the social media and they set the table. Hey, there could be a hack and leak operation involving Hunter Biden. It comes out immediately. There's contact, listen to this, between the Biden team and Twitter. The Biden team, we know from the Elon Musk revelations that the Biden team are now communicating with Twitter, ensuring that this stuff is in fact suppressed, censored, etc., right? The extraordinary revelation for the first time lays bare how the FBI was involved in pre-debunking the story of the laptop, which had been in the Bureau's possession for almost a year. They've had it for a year. And instead of investigating it, because there was apparently illegal activity potentially going in, there was clearly evidence of a potential crime, of a possible crime, right? Probable cause was there. Instead of starting an investigation, they get this laptop. Instead of looking into it, they go start setting the table. They go to social media and say, hey, you know, somebody may lie to you about Hunter Biden and it may be a foreign government hacking. Instead of looking into it, they immediately begin lying about it. Immediately, not just lying, not simply lying, absolute, unequivocal, and intentional election interference. They then go to the social media companies. They got this laptop. They're like, this is Hunter Biden stuff. Looks bad. What are we going to do? Let's go to social media and we'll tell them the Russians may do some Hunter Biden laptop. Deliberate and intentional lying. But nobody's being held accountable. I was told in these meetings that the intelligence community expected that individuals associated with political campaigns would be subject to hacking attacks, and that materials obtained through those hacking attacks would likely be disseminated over social media, including Twitter, said Roth in a December 21, 2020 declaration to the FEC, federal. So he's saying, and he says, I also learned in these meetings that there were rumors that a hack and leak operation would involve Hunter Biden. So the FBI deliberately, intentionally, with malice and a forethought, lied to the social media companies not just lied. They didn't just say to them, we don't know, or we do know, when they did or didn't. They just didn't tell a little white lie, as it's called. They intentionally embarked upon an operation. This was what? Let's call it what it was. It was a disinformation and misinformation operation by the FBI, perpetrated through the social media companies on the American people. The FBI has now been shown in during the 2020 election cycle, it is now proven that the FBI deliberately embarked on a misinformation and disinformation program against the American people to influence the election program. Influence the presidential election beyond a reasonable doubt to a moral certainty. That is now proven. Now, do you understand now why the government is constantly saying we've got to fight disinformation? Do you understand why they had old Scary Poppins, Nina Jankowicz, and the Disinformation Governance Board? And while people like me were saying, oh, there's a disinformation governance board, all right, they've got to govern their own disinformation. Their disinformation is so blatant, it is so over the top, that they are afraid people will have a critical discussion, that people will use critical thinking and have an intellectual discussion and an intellectual debate using empirical facts and data to debunk their lies and expose their corruption. And that's what we're looking at right here. Let us continue. Ross signed declaration formed part of Twitter's defense against a complaint by the Tea Party Patriots Foundation that its censorship of the post was an in-kind campaign contribution to then presidential candidate Joe Biden's campaign. Now, here's what I would argue. They got a good defense. If the Tea Party Patriots are saying that's an in-kind, that they deliberately did it to help the campaign, therefore, if you put a monetary, you can say what they're saying is this: you contributed to the Biden campaign. We can actually put a number on that. We can have an actuary say the value of the help that you gave the Biden campaign was, let's just say, $100,000. That means that you contributed $100,000 to them and you didn't report it. And as a social media company, you are now responsible for contributing, and you have to deal with the FEC violations and laws that says, can a company do that? Did a social media company do that? There are a lot of other ramifications if they could, in their lawsuit, prove that Twitter deliberately gave contributions, in-kind contributions, to the Biden administration. Unfortunately for the Tea Party Patriots, that is a very powerful defense for Twitter. That's a good defense in that particular instance, to say, no, we didn't deliberately help the Biden administration. For that particular argument, I'm sure there are many more, but for that one, to say, no, we didn't, because the FBI came and told us, hey, this is bad. And what were we supposed to do? We were listening to the FBI. So that's a good defense for Twitter. But when you put all the information together for the FBI and you say, wait a minute, they went to them, they told them it was disinformation and misinformation while they knew it wasn't. So that was a disinformation and misinformation program launched by the FBI. Operation, not program, launched by the FBI. But who was the target? The target wasn't Twitter. The target were people who read Twitter. The target were the voters, which means it was deliberately it was deliberate election interference by the FBI beyond a reasonable doubt to a moral certainty. Let's continue. The FBI also warned Facebook to be on high alert for a, quote, dump of Russian propaganda before the 2020 election in terms specific enough that it fit the pattern of the post stories, Mark Zuckerberg told Joe Rogan. Facebook also censored the post of headers ahead of Twitter's throttling of the story in October, pending fact checks that never appear to have been done. In fact, if you look at Elon Musk's story, if you look at his revelations, what you find out is that the people in Twitter in the background were saying, oh, we're going to say it's hacking material. That's not much of a story. And what they were saying is this: our arguments, our reasoning for, if you read what the Twitter people were saying behind the scenes, they're saying, we're going to censor this and we're going to say it was hacked material. We're going to say it was whatever, right? But behind the scenes, they were saying, our arguments, our reasons that we're giving for censoring this material aren't very strong and they're not going to hold water. But what the hell? It's all we got. In other words, we're going to censor it. We got to come up with a reason. We don't have a good reason. We know we don't have a good reason. Let's just use what we got. Now, Garland Nixon is suspended from Twitter right now. They suspended me. That's what happened. I put forth a joke and they said it was hateful conduct. Well, they knew it wasn't hateful conduct, but it was the same thing. You see, what we're seeing is the pattern of social media. They intend to take action and they do it backwards. Instead of saying this is hateful conduct, therefore we have to censor it. This is hacked information, therefore we have to censor it. They say we're going to censor it. Now, what are we going to use to censor it? Well, can we say hateful conduct? Can we say hacked information? Well, we don't have anything better. It's a determination that you're going to censor it. And why are they censoring it? At the behest of the government, which is specifically why it is all protected speech. Why I was thrown off Twitter. Why? Because they said we got to throw them off Twitter. What are you going to do? Well, let's go with hateful conduct. It's all we got. And in this instance, the FBI lied to Twitter and basically told them to censor it. And Twitter knew they didn't have a good reason to censor it. But Twitter just said, we're going to censor it. What are we going to come up with? Let's call it hacked. That ain't very good, but it's all we got. Okay, we got to go with what we got, right? It's almost like the old Star Trek where Captains Kirk and Spock are sitting there. And Kirk says, okay, Spock, we're going to hide behind this planet. We'll use its gravitational field to whip us to warp 9, and we'll go past the Klingons and with the Romulans and survive. And Spock says, but Captain Kirk, according to my calculations, that only has an 11.631% chance of working. And Spock would, of course, then at that time, Kirk would say to Spock, you got a better idea? And Spock would say, Scotty, head behind the planet. Let's go. It was, in other words, hey, this is not a very good option, but we don't have another option and we got to do something. And that's what Twitter was saying. Hey, we got to censor this thing. The FBI told us to censor it. Do you have a good reason? No. Let's go with what we got. I say hacked. You say hateful. Let's just say because the sky's blue. Okay, the sky's blue, whatever. Nah, we'll go with hacked materials today. They probably, like did a rock, paper, scissors. Okay, I say hacked material. I say hateful conduct. All right, rock, paper, scissors. Darn, we're going with hateful conduct. That's what they did. They decided to censor on behalf of the government. So that's what we all knew we were here. Let's continue. The FBI, who organized these weekly meetings with big tech, was supervisory special agent Elvis Chan, whose postgraduate thesis claimed that Russia interfered with the 2016 election to help former President Donald Trump. So they bring a guy who comes up, and here's a guy whose postgraduate thesis argues something that has since been completely debunked. Chan testified by Zoom Tuesday in a lawsuit that against the Biden administration that he organized the meetings in San Francisco for as many as 7 DC-based FBI agents in the run-up to the 2020 presidential election. He also organized weekly meetings with Facebook. Okay, so we got under questions by Missouri Solicitor General John Sauer on Tuesday, Chan said the FBI warned Twitter to be on guard for a hack and leak operation, but could not recall whether Hunter Biden was mentioned. Isn't it interesting? I heard recently that Dr. Fauci was interviewed in a deposition, and he had the memory of a fruit fly when the fruit flies only live for 4 hours. Hey, what's your name? Were you involved in the Eco Health Alliance? Who Health Eco Alliance? I can't recall. Ever heard of SARS-CoV-2? SARS, HARS, BARS. COVID. Yeah, doesn't ring a bell. Isn't it interesting how these criminals and these crooks, when they're put on the stand, all of a sudden they can't remember, don't know their name, where they were born. This guy who organizes, he's with the FBI. He organizes meetings. He brings in FBI agents from DC. He organizes meetings with Twitter, organizes meetings with Facebook. He didn't send anybody any emails. He doesn't have any notes from those. And he says, hey, Hunter Biden, that's Russian disinformation. At the same time, they knew it wasn't. And they're like, here's what we got. We got the social media boss testifying. They told us this was a hack and leak, and they specifically mentioned, the FBI specifically mentioned the Hunter Biden laptop story. They then go to the FBI guy who set up those meetings and says, okay, here's what they tell us. You did this, and that you said that it was the Hunter Biden laptop story. And he's like, Hunter, who? Hunter what? Joe Biden, Hunter Biden? It can't, just doesn't ring a bell. I'm sorry. I can't remember anything. I don't know. Who is this again? Is this a lawsuit? Is my name Chan? What time is it? Hey, there's something with 5 fingers. Is this a hand? I can't recall if this is my hand. Maybe it's somebody else's. My name, don't know. The guy suddenly developed an acute case of Alzheimer's. Once somebody asked him, you set up the meetings. The people who were in the meeting specifically told us what you told them. Why'd you tell them that? I don't remember telling them that. What were the meetings about? Meetings. What meetings? With whom? Big Tech? Twitter? I never heard of it. I don't know. All of a sudden, an acute case, the most acute case of Alzheimer's in history, of dementia, suddenly he forgot. And this is a guy who did a postgraduate paper on Trump, Russia, Trump, Russia, Trump, Russia. What a shock. Let's continue. This is a crucial inconsistency with Roth's sworn declaration saying the FBI specifically mentioned Hunter, very specifically. That guy told me it was Hunter Biden's laptop and it was Russian disinformation. Did you tell him it was Hunter Biden's laptop and this was Russian disinformation? I don't remember. But here's the other thing. If I'm asking him a question, I say, so you don't recall? No, I don't. Here's the question I ask him. Well, then is it possible? Theoretically. You don't recall. You can't say for sure that you did. You can't say for sure that you didn't. Is that what you're telling us? Yes. So now we have established that it is possible. We have a person who under sworn testimony says that you specifically mentioned the Hunter Biden laptop, and you can't recall. Your position is, I may have. I don't remember. So the evidence is strong. We have to say in a court, particularly if you're looking at rather than a criminal trial, if you're looking at a civil trial, remember, civil trials have a relaxed standard of evidence. And in a civil trial, remember, in a criminal trial, what are you looking for? You're looking for beyond a reasonable doubt to a moral certainty. In a civil trial, what you're looking for is a preponderance of the evidence. What does that mean? 51% more likely, 49 that it happened, 49% less likely that it happened. And the standards of evidence are reduced, such as you can introduce hearsay evidence and things of that nature. So what we have now, if you say a preponderance of the evidence, if you have a respected person who was a top executive of Twitter saying, this man told me X, and I go to this man and say, did you tell him X? And he says, I don't remember. It's possible. I now have 51-49 at minimum. I would say 60-40. I'd say 70-30 at this point, because he said you told him and you said you don't remember. You might have told him. Maybe 80-20 now. It's way above 51-49. So at that point, we can make the argument that the evidence is overwhelming that you specifically told him the Hunter Biden laptop evidence is Russian disinformation at the time you knew it wasn't. The FBI used the meetings to lobby the social media platforms to change their terms of service in order to be able to quickly take down hacked material, says a source of the transcript with access to a transcript of Chan's testimony. So let's go. In these meetings, the FBI was furthermore saying, oh, one more thing. You need to change your terms of service so that you can censor more easily. So the government was lying to social media companies about something that they wanted censored, that they knew was true. And they went so far as to tell the social media companies, oh, and also what we'd like you to do is we would like you to change your terms of service to make it more easy for you to censor those. This is a scandal, an incredible scandal of a very high degree. And I don't have any confidence that, both parties are garbage. So I don't have any confidence that the FBI, that the Republicans are going to come in and find out anything about the FBI. The only thing the Republicans are going to come in is find things about China. In fact, the Republicans will come and probably blame it all on China. Yes, it had nothing to do with the FBI. It was China that did it. The Communist Party of China is guilty of all things evil. So they're worthless as hell. You got two parties. You got a Russian. You got the Democrats that blame everything on Russia. Hey, what happens? Looks like somebody stole my lunch out of the refrigerator. It was Vladimir Putin. It came right to the Senate office building and stole your lunch. He got 2 ham sandwiches and an apple. Yeah, well, I had a juicy juice in there too. Oh, that Vladimir Putin loves those juicy juices. I give them to my kids all the time. So that's the Democratic Party, and you got a Republican Party that says those people are crazy. It's not all about Russia. Clearly, it's about China. What happened with the Hunter Biden laptop? I don't know how, but somehow China was involved. 2 worthless parties. So you're never going to get to the bottom of anything because they're both beholden to the national security state, the crooked, lying national security state, and of course, the national security state was up to no good. All right. Thanks a lot, everybody. Going to run. But don't forget, as I always say, I'll end it by saying this. Smash the like button. We got 539 people. So hopefully we'll have 539 likes here. For those of you, anybody that can help out the channel, you see it all scrolling across. buymeacoffee.com/GarlandNH. Of course, Cash App. If you can do a Patreon, $1, $5, $1 million, $100, whatever you can do a month, I appreciate it. If you can't, don't worry about it. I know there are people that can't afford it. If you can't afford to help the channel, don't even worry about it. Enjoy this information and share it on all of your social media platforms. Research it. If you find something that I got wrong, certainly garlandin@gmail.com. Send me, let me know if you find out that I got something wrong. Cash App, all our information is there. Of course, I'm on Rockfin, ROKFIN.com/Garland Nixon. I think that's it. Oh, last but not least, and this is always important, rockfin.com is a free speech platform. You can become a member. It costs absolutely nothing. So if they toss me off of YouTube, you can come to my Rockfin channel and become a member. You can also, right now, it's I think $9.99 a month to be a contributor, to be a subscriber on my Rockfin channel. If you can afford it, please really do that. If you do a month, you get if you do a year, you get 2 months free. If you can afford it, that really helps Rockfin. It really helps strengthen my channel, simply because Rockfin is a free speech platform that does not have advertising. Therefore, subscribers is what keeps it alive. So if you can afford it, but we don't force subscribers. No, you're not forced, because a lot of people can't afford it. You need to get the info anyway. And so if you can afford to be a subscriber on Rockfin, I would really appreciate that. That would then make we have premium so people don't know, every content creator on Rockfin does at least one premium show per week, and only the subscribers can see that premium show. I do mine with Scott Ritter every Wednesday from 9 to 10 a.m., but I still show most of the damn thing on everybody else because there's people that can't afford it. And, you know, I'm like, when I was a little kid, I was very, very poor. And my leaning is always towards people that can't afford things because I've been there. I know what it's like to have nothing, and I know what it's like to be pretty okay economically, you know, so I know what it's like to be in all parts of it. So my first leanings are always towards the less fortunate. That's what drives my politics. Thank you very much, Garland Nixon, garlandin@gmail.com, rockfin.com/Garland Nixon. Become a member. If you can afford it, become a subscriber. Peace. I'm out.